should be ready to go, Commissioner.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to the Cumberland County Commissioners meeting, Monday, March 8th at 5:30. Because we are online, if you have comments you wish to make, please make them to Kennedy at cumberlandcounty.org. Cumberland County is all one word there, so that you can be heard heard at the meeting, or it'll be repeated so that we can try to handle the issue that you may have. So I'll call the meeting to order and ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, Mr. Manager?
Commissioner Witonis,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Coward,
Yes.
and Chairman Gordon.
Yes.
Show the vote 5-0.
We're now going to have informational report and a update from our Director of Public Affairs to talk about legislative issues in Augusta. Are you prepared, Mr. Travis?
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to talk about sort of the circumstances of the legislature right now and some of the issues that we're monitoring, bills that we've engaged on already. I'll ask your what level of discretion, Mr. Commissioner, whether you want me to share lists or strategies. I think, ultimately I'm happy to give kind of an overview of where we're at. I'm sure that you, with your role in the Legislative Policy Committee, probably also have some useful insight on what's going on at the State House. It's a very strange year, as everybody is aware. Imagine doing what we're doing with 151 members covering, up to 2,000 different pieces of policy, which I've never done before. So it's taking some getting used to for the legislators and for the advocates like us to figure out how to engage with each other, but patterns are starting to emerge. A couple of observations first on what kind of year they're having. Part of the challenge, I think, of not being able to be there in public for the lobbyists is you sort of have to kind of laser focus on the issues you've identified, and you don't get that that atmosphere of finding things while you're there and sitting in committees and learning about other issues and talking to other lobbyists. Same goes for the press. The press can't catch members in the hall and ask them what they're working on. So, viewing from the outside what the major themes of the current legislature are, there are two major issues that sort of have found their way to the public consciousness outside of the building. And they're, of course, response to the pandemic, both social and supports that have come up and been identified as needs because of the pandemic, whether it's healthcare or broadband or education. Most of the issues that are getting attention were holes that were identified because of the pandemic or that have opened because of the pandemic. And then the other side of it is how the body and how the state has been forced to change, and codifying some of those things for the future, like how we hold these meetings and what kind of rules need to exist for public meetings in the future. Debates over the governor's executive powers, the sort of presence of vaccine hesitancy, and what sort of policy issues have been born out of that. And a lot of these bills can touch us in all kinds of different ways at the county level. There are a lot of labor bills that have come up as a result of the pandemic that may affect us. If you take a look at the spreadsheet that Jim forwarded to you, we're doing our best to kind of capture everything that looks like it may end up having an impact on the county because it was identified through response to the pandemic. The other sort of subject that a lot of the bills that are making their way out into the consciousness revolve around are social justice issues and racial inequality, much of which has emerged since George Floyd's killing last year and the protests that have followed. And so those, a lot of those bills also touch Cumberland County, but largely through the sheriff's office. And we've always sort of taken an approach of offering ourselves as capacity support to the sheriff in his lobbying efforts. I see he's here tonight. I don't know if he wants to talk about these issues or not, but there are a lot of policing and jail issues that have sort of bubbled up to the top of the pile because of what's been going on in the country and the world over the past year. So as far as us, we didn't, Cumberland County didn't go up to Augusta virtually this year with an agenda of our own. We just didn't have any issues that we identified as Cumberland County specific that we needed to sort of lock in our own legislative agenda on. I have engaged the delegation and spoken to many members of the delegation who have region level bills that they think we might be able to help with, or that we might have some interest in informing them on background. In particular, just this morning, I testified on a bill sponsored by Representative Sylvester from Portland, which is right now a concept draft, but the concept is to create a study committee to determine whether sort of county government is right-sized in Maine as compared to other states, with the goal of identifying maybe some services and functions that county government in Maine could potentially do more efficiently than the state. So, we've demonstrated, Cumberland and York County in particular, our ability to create regional programming that our towns have seeked out and have appreciated. And we've proven that there are ways that we can do it better and cheaper. And so what Representative Sylvester's bill would do is form a committee to both look at how that has worked and whether there's the ability to do more of it, but also if there's some top-down services and programs that the state is doing that the counties might be better fit to do. And if there are legislative changes, statutory changes to empower us in different ways. And so the bill is purely to form a committee. But it was something that I offered testimony on this morning in support of. We walked a similar bill up a couple of years ago with York County, focused just on HHS issues, and this is a little more broad. I've also been talking with Representative Bailey from Gorham, who is bringing in 2 bond questions that would be uniquely beneficial to Cumberland County. One is a bond to build a convention center in Cumberland County. Another issue that we were working on 2 years ago and is coming up again. We built a coalition involving local Chamber of Commerce and the advocates for the hospitality industry. That group is coming together again to talk about that bond question. And another bond question that Representative Bailey has put forth about investing in the airports in Portland and Bangor to allow for more international visitors, something that would be a great opportunity for Cumberland County tourism and business. Beyond that, if you take I don't know if you have the list in front of you, one thing that you'll notice that's certainly a theme of this legislature is that they're not moving very fast, which is very understandable. They're having to do this in a completely different way. And so if we just look at my list as a sample, I have about 140 bills on it. About half of them actually exist in bill form currently. About half of them have LD numbers and printed text. We're in March, we're closing in on the halfway point of the legislative session. And if you use my list as a sample, only about half of the bills have even been printed, let alone referenced to committee and scheduled for public hearings. Those that have been scheduled for public hearings, it's fewer than 20. So, purely looking at this list as a sample, they have a lot of catching up to do. And what I would suspect is likely, it's early to say this and they might really pick up speed, what I would suspect is likely is we'll see a significant amount of carryover legislation into next year when they're hopefully able to meet in person again. and work through this list a little bit faster. But I guess, Commissioner Gordon, I think you've been more engaged specifically on the jail funding bill that we did a lot of work on 2 years ago and was halted by the pandemic. Currently, again, I mean, we've talked about it before, but county jails are flat funded from the previous budget in the current state budget, which we've determined is okay for Cumberland County. But there's a bill that we did a lot of work on 2 years ago that adjusted the way that we're funded in some ways that make a lot of sense. And Commissioner Gordon has been working on that more directly than I have. So Commissioner, if you have updates on that, I'd like to hear them too.
Well, oddly enough, was last Friday, we met with MSA and we met with MMA to talk about the issues. And MMA, and it looks like MMA and the Maine County Commissioners Association are pulling together on this issue, which, as their representative made the remark, March 5th should be marked on the calendar because it's the first time they know that the two associations have ever gone together on an issue. But it is true. It looks like if we can get what the adjustments that we were making, and they were supportive of it also, we can help at least diminish some of the costs to the property tax owner because the state will fund it. And that's the whole drive of the issue. The flat funding is Travis is making mention of, is that there's a flat amount it's in the bill, but it also allows it to increase based on the information that the counties will submit to the state in the future. What yearly at the annual, what were the costs actually to run the jail, so that they can adjust those figures. And it looks like we may be in a position, and one of the big fears, of course, has been to try to create the BOC again, and that's not even showing its head. So we're fortunate in that. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, quickly on the federal level, as I'm sure you're all aware, the Senate has passed a stimulus bill that includes significant county funds to reasonably narrow what those funds can be used for. I think Cumberland County, based on the formula, would be assigned $54 million, but what we can actually spend it on is somewhat slim. And so whether we can make use of all of it or not remains to be seen. But one thing I will mention that may open up the ability to access more of those funds. There's a major effort going on at the federal level. Senator King is actually a driver to increase the minimum upload and download speeds that would define served for broadband. So currently there, if I remember right, I think it is 100 download and 25 upload. Right. And the effort is to bring it to 100, which would then create a lot more areas of Cumberland County that may not be fully served. And so that would make us potentially qualify for more federal funds to invest in broadband. So there's a lot to watch about what's coming from the feds. But Jim and I have been talking about which categories the funding allotted to counties, some of the things that we've identified fall under, and the language will still have to be defined to figure out if we can spend it or not. But it's good news for state and local governments, what we expect to come out of the new recovery bill.
Commissioner Coward.
Yes, Travis, thank you. There was some interference in the line. How much money are we likely to get from the stimulus bill?
You may have thought there was interference, Commissioner, when you heard 54 million, but that's what the formula would assign to Cumberland County.
Well, I couldn't believe my ears, but I just wanted to double check that.
Yeah, it's a bulk amount distributed by population.
Okay.
Well, 154 million is a lot of money.
I would be cautious there because my understanding is that it's not a direct service at the level that we're at. you have to have your budgets, I think, somewhere around $350 million for direct service. Otherwise, it goes through the state.
That's probably likely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be determined
Yeah.
about how the money would come to us and how we would claim it. But we certainly have some ideas on how we would spend it. So, yeah, I mean, in general, good news that state and local governments are going to see some aid in the bill that will probably be signed as soon as tomorrow night or Wednesday.
Okay. And I had just one other follow-up question. You mentioned that somebody's got a bill out for a civic center in Cumberland County. So that would be an additional civic center or a
Convention center.
Yeah,
convention center. Sorry.
Right. And so there was a bill about 2 years ago to create bond funding. And I think what they ended up negotiating it down to was funding to commit a massive study toward a convention center. And nothing ended up really happening with much of anything by the end of that legislature for bonds. But there's a sort of recurring commitment now to keep bringing this issue forth.
So does this, I mean, would this mean, are we going to put in a bid to take that over? Or are we going to let somebody else run it? I mean, we got the only big venue in Cumberland County now. Do we want another one? And how's that going to affect us? It's probably really early to be talking about it because it sounds like it's somebody's concept, something.
But, right. I mean, the money wouldn't go to Cumberland County to build a convention center. It would, support a convention center being built, and whoever ends up owning and building and managing it, we're a long ways off. But it creates a conversation at the state level about the value of investing in such a thing. Which we're happy to be a part of.
Sure.
Yeah. No, another issue there, Tom, is that there is not a facility in the state that can house some of the meetings that our bigger organizations, private organizations, have need of, and that's why the convention center.
No, I know. I mean, like the Augusta Civic Center, the lawyers alone can fill that thing almost to capacity. I've had many, bar associations. I mean, lawyers are, there's always too many lawyers around, but we managed to fill the place. I know, I'm sure Neil and Jim have been to them before. You go there and we fill up the whole place. So if you get something of even wider appeal than that, I mean, there's no place to host it. I'm a member of an organization that occasionally, I mean, annually they put on a thing. They need space for 10,000 people, and Maine. I mean, the whole of Maine probably not hold 10,000 people, at least not in proximity to each other. So that would be a wonderful kind of thing to tap into if we could.
Yeah, there's a lot of
the flip side is it's been studied a number of times, and it really is very difficult to see how it could ever possibly support its operating costs. Say nothing about the cost to build one.
And that's why it's become a bond question, because they don't generally make money, in particular building them, and so it's a question of the state sort of buying in to the value of building such a thing. Certainly a conversation worth having. Where it keeps us closely affiliated with tourism and business partners in the area, and other policy ideas and conversations come out of that. So we like working on the issue, whether we think it'll ever no, absolutely. We should certainly be in the conversation, but I agree with Jim Cloutier. I think that's been studied many times, and it's just we just don't have we're a state of 1.25 million people or something like that. I mean, there are multiple cities in this country with a larger population than us. So it's kind of hard to figure out how we're going to support that kind of infrastructure for the, even a lot of occasional large conventions.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question of Travis? Well, thank you, Travis. And unless you have something else you'd like to add.
Happy to take any questions and to talk, more specifically with any of you individually about bills or initiatives that you're interested in.
Okay.
Oh, thanks for your presentation. It's very informative.
Comment, Travis, I hate to put you in a spot, but do we have any comments from the public yet?
So I just received an email from somebody who I believe is going to send comment, but she hasn't yet. So circle back with me maybe later on in the meeting, or I'll let you know if comment comes in.
Okay, thank you. We're now into consent agenda.
I move
Could I
passage of the
have a-
consent agenda.
Second,
Do we have, well, there's no discussion. Can I have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Coward,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
yes.
Commissioner Watonis. Commissioner Watonis.
She's on.
You're on mute.
Mute. That's why I didn't hear you.
Yes.
All right, 5-0. Show it pass.
Okay, new business. May I have a motion to accept item 21016?
So moved.
To award, let me read it. Thank you. To award a bid of to Quick Auto of Augusta, Maine in the amount of $304,610.26. Presentation, Jim Gailey, I'll turn this over to you.
Sure, thank you. As the commissioners are aware, every first of the year, the sheriff's office puts in their order for the coming year's new additions to the fleet. This year is no different. This memo is requesting an awarded bid of just over $304,000 for a total of 9 vehicles. The 7 of the vehicles are going to be Ford utility all-wheel drive. That is going to be different from what you've approved in the past. We typically are dealing with the the Tahoe, Chevy Tahoe. However, it's my understanding that the Tahoe is not being made this year, so departments are going towards the Ford utility all-wheel drive vehicle, which is like the Explorer, what the state police and many of the local police agencies drive. So we're going in that direction there. We got a K9 vehicle being purchased, and then a unmarked CID vehicle. We do have Captain Kerry Joyce on the video this evening to answer any specifics around the vehicle purchase. Hopefully I didn't take any of the wind out of his sail on his presentation, but I just wanted to let the commissioners know that the captain is on for any questions if you may have. Thank you.
Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call Sue.
I was wondering if the captain is going to come on, just so people could familiarize, with who he is, because he is a new captain. I don't know how long he's been on the job, maybe 3 months or so. And I just thought it would be a good idea if he could come on and introduce himself, or put a name with a face. So if that's possible.
Captain Joyce.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, so Captain Kerry Joyce. I don't have a video camera with this laptop computer that I'm issued. Some of us still don't have video cameras, so.
Hey, Kerry?
Yes.
Maybe it's like with Joe Schnaps. You got to hit the top of it and the camera pops up. That's how he found his.
No, I get an older one.
Okay.
I make sure all the recruits and the deputies on the street have the best equipment. So at this time, I don't have a camera, but I am open for any questions if you have any. And I'm sure I'll meet you at some point in time when we get beyond this COVID.
Well, thank you. Does anybody got any other questions of Gary? Thank you, Captain Joyce.
You're welcome.
Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Coward,
Yes.
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Watonis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Show the vote 5-0. Thank you, Carrie, for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept 21017 to amend the 2019 CDBG action plan to reallocate the CDBG CV round 3 funds?
So
I'll
moved.
move.
Moved and seconded. Uh,
Could we just see who was the person that moved in second?
I don't know.
I think it
These
was
two, yeah.
Neil
The
and
two bald guys.
Neil
I
and
heard.
Tom Coward.
Neil and Tom? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I'm looking for Kristen Stiles. Kristen, you there? There we go.
I am.
Here's the sales lady. You're on.
Thank you very much for allowing me to present tonight. Kristen Stiles, Community Development Director. The title is a bit confusing because this is the third substantial amendment to our 2019 action plan. The first substantial amendment was mid 2020. It was the CDBG CV round 1 funds. We didn't receive any CDBG CV round 2. The second amendment was the CDBG CV round 3 funds. And that is what the commissioners approved in October. Since October, there's been some changes to what we would like to fund. I'm going to go over those details in just a minute. But what we're here to do tonight is reallocate a portion of those CDBG CV round 3 funds. So since the October meeting, shortly afterward, Maine Housing released a rental assistance program, and a good chunk of 500,000 of our funds were set aside for rental assistance. But obviously with a very robust rental assistance program through Maine Housing, which covers Cumberland County residents, it doesn't make sense for us to use our funds. The ones that they received are a lot easier to access, and the funds can go a lot further. Additionally, we had set aside $273,000 for particularly for food pantries to help with COVID-related supplies. We only had one organization reach out, and that was Wayside Foods, that purchased boxes for food pantries across Cumberland County to help with the food distribution. The rest of that money remained untouched. So we brought the MOC together in January to review the remaining funds that we have not spent and to figure out a reallocation plan. At that meeting, it was determined that a good use of those funds would be to give $100,000 to the jail to help with COVID-19 testing. As many of you are aware, the testing was being covered under a CARES Act program that expired December 31st. So there was a lack of funding, and obviously we need to continue testing at the jail to prevent an outbreak. The MOC decided to take the remainder of that funds and release it in a competitive bid. And through that competitive bid, we released it at the beginning of February, and we received 21 eligible applications. We were quite blown away at the number of applications we received and the quality of them. We knew that there was a great need, but we just didn't expect to get as many as we did in such a short turnaround time. But we reviewed all of the applications, scored them, presented them to the review team, which happened to also be looking at our regular CDBG funds at the same time, and then brought it to the full MOC for a vote. So in your packet is a copy of all 21 applications and how we plan to fund those projects. I'd like to say that there was quite a bit of discussion that went into how much to fund for each one of those projects. And I think the majority of the MOC, if not the whole MOC, is quite happy with what they have presented.
Do we go ahead.
Additionally, sorry. Additionally, there are a few minor amendments. Minor amendments don't usually get brought to the level of coming to the commissioners, but since we're here, one of them is $200,910 was set aside for emergency rental assistance, be going to the city of Portland. That program is still going to the city of Portland, but it's no longer funding shelter bed nights. It's funding a shelter position that's going to help with resettlement, helping move people out of the shelter that are Cumberland County residents back into housing, which is very needed. The other minor amendments were for the town of Bridgeton. They also, because of the robust main housing rental assistance program, have more rental assistance funds than they can spend. So they're giving 5,000 of that to a winter clothing program to help try and get kids outside in the winter time right now. And there's also just a greater need this year for winter clothing. And then the remaining of the rental assistance funds, they're going to reallocate to emergency assistance. So anything else that would qualify as emergency assistance that's CDBG eligible. So bus passes, diapers, household cleaning supplies, clothing, hygiene supplies, anything that can help low income people get the supplies they need during this tough time. And other than that, there was an accounting error in Opportunity Alliance's accounting system. So they only spent 190,000 instead of 215,000 of round one rental assistance funds that we gave them. And what we have decided to do is to hold that $24,000 and use it towards the additional admin that it's going to cost to run in 21 extra programs this year. So hopefully we won't have to use all of it, but we had originally budgeted for the CDBG CV funds just to go through June 30th, 2020, and this extra 24,000 will help us keep running it through the fall.
Do we have any questions of Kristen?
Commissioner Gordon, we have received public comment on this item.
Okay.
I am in receipt of that. If you'd like me to read the letter into the record, we can. I thought that'd be beneficial before you entered into your question and answer.
And Jim, we've received two. So I just received the second one. If you want to read one, I can read the other.
Okay, sounds good. I'll read the first one you sent me. All right, the first letter is, good evening, Cumberland County Commissioners. My name is Michelle Lamb, and I am the Executive Director for the Greater Portland Family Promise. Through intensive case management, landlord engagement, and mediation, financial assistance, and ongoing housing mentorship, Greater Portland Family Promise helps families to remain in their homes or to secure and maintain affordable, safe, permanent housing. The City of Portland is currently housing 71 families comprised of 230 individuals at the family shelter and nearby motels. Due to lack of resources, the families in the motels are not currently receiving case management services through the City of Portland. 90% or more of these families are asylum-seeking immigrant families from African countries such as Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo. These families are not only the responsibility of Portland, but the responsibility of Cumberland County. Greater Portland Family Promise has a long-standing partnership and MOU with the City of Portland, and historically, we would shelter 4 of the families in the overflow shelter at a time. We are now providing case management, financial assistance, and housing mentorship for up to 4 families per month. The Greater Portland Family Promise Homelessness Prevention Program helps to keep families in their apartments, or in cases where families are already experiencing homelessness, we can act quickly to get families into apartments and provide the needed mentorship to help them stably housed over time. I am disheartened to see that the Cumberland County Municipal Oversight Committee did not recommend any funding for the Greater Portland Family Promise Homelessness Prevention and Rapid Resolution Program. I am asking you to reconsider the Municipal Oversight Committee's recommendation and to provide us with either full or partial funding so that we can continue helping to keep families in their homes and to rapidly
Whoops. We lost somebody.
Oh, he went
Jim,
on
you're
mute.
He's muted.
You're
Jim,
muted,
you're
Jim.
muted. You're muted now.
There you go.
What happened there? How far did you hear me say, get through the letter?
Oh, go back about 10 seconds and you'll be fine.
Okay,
You were in the last paragraph, Jim.
interesting. The last paragraph, I am asking you to reconsider the Municipal Oversight Committee's recommendation and to provide us with either full or partial funding so that we can continue helping to keep families in their homes and to rapidly rehouse displaced families, keeping them from long-term stays in emergency shelters, or in this case, motels. Sincerely, Michelle Lamb, Executive Director, Greater Portland Family Promise.
Good.
If you'd like, Commissioner, I can read.
Yeah, would you read the second one, please?
Okay, so this comment is from Brian Townsend, the Executive Director of Amistad. He says, Amistad is extremely grateful to the CDBG review team and to the Cumberland County Commissioners for the allocation of funds to support our efforts to provide food and meet the food security needs of Cumberland County residents. Hunger has become an even more pronounced issue for county residents since the onset of the pandemic, with reduced incomes and disrupted food service and programming. Amistad's mobile response to this COVID-19 impacted food security concern will be vastly strengthened by this allocation, as it will allow us to provide this resource to county residents outside of Portland. The need is great, and we cannot thank you enough for trusting us to work to meet that need. We appreciate that the review team had its work cut out for them with so many worthy applications. Thanks to all of you, and we are thrilled to be your partners in this work. And that's the end of his comment.
All right, thank you. Does anybody want to comment on these? Jim, you're mute. There you go.
I just wanted to mention, related to Amistad, for anyone who might not happen to know, that is a long-standing and very well-respected community group that has provided a variety of services to people with mental illness issues and related kinds of issues. And I can't say enough about how well and how responsible an organization they have been over the years.
Wow, thank you. Does anybody else have a comment? Tom?
Yeah, I just wondered if Kristen wanted to respond. The first letter sounds like a disappointed applicant. And I don't know whether Kristen could just give us an idea of the process they went through on that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. What it came to was we had 21 extremely good applications. And when we did the scoring, they were all fairly close in score. And the same process ends up happening with our regular CDBG funds of we look at the scores and then a discussion ends up taking place. And with both the scores and the discussion, what it came down to was trying to spread the funds as much as possible. And this particular program is a bit Portland focused, which our CDBG funds do not go in Portland. They go in the rest of the county, except for Portland and Brunswick. And the other thing is the main housing has part of that 200 million that they are distributing. 10% of that will be going to housing stabilization. And then additionally, the county has teamed up with the city of Portland to do that housing resettlement coordinator position to help address the exact issue that she's talking about in her application. And I mean, it really was a great application, very well written. It's a great program based on their application. There are 21 really, really, really good applications.
Yeah, and we do at the county level try to focus on the county as a whole as opposed to any one particular community, because we cover everybody, and it sounds like that was a factor in this particular decision too. So I mean, I do not want the county to be micromanaging your job, Kristen, because then we would have to we would have to be doing this, and you do such a wonderful job with these things. But thank you for the amplification of that one.
Does anybody else have a comment? I have something I'd like to put forth here. I'd like to really have a workshop on this, Jim. And from this aspect, it seems to me that we're getting into an area of policy that is new for the county. And that's getting into the area of social welfare. And I think in fairness, we probably ought to have that discussion amongst ourselves and to try to develop some sort of a policy that goes that way. Because otherwise it's going to be hit or miss, and that's unfair to people, and it's unfair to commissioners, and it's unfair to the voters, my belief. So I would ask that maybe we have a workshop to discuss this issue and see where we come and where we want to go in the future. Thank you. Jim.
My question has to do with the funding that we're dealing with, which I think was the COVID-related funding. I would 100% acknowledge that we should, if we're going to expand or suggest to our review committee that they consider wider ideas in the context of the annual CDBG funding. That seems to me to be a completely wise idea to have a full discussion about that. And I know in Portland over the years, social services became a very significant portion of the CDBG effort and approach. But my understanding, and maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, is that these funds are pretty focused in the first place, and it's not like we have an option to build a community center or redo a sidewalk or something. This is all kind of social service and emergency support kind of funding, as I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything on this topic? We'll move on. Could I have a motion to accept a new grant program monitoring policy?
Commissioner,
Don't we have a motion on the floor already to accept?
Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't take care of Kristen. Roll call, please, Jim. Sorry. Thank you.
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Watonis,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Coward,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Show the vote 5-0.
I'm trying to move too fast here, I guess. Again.
And thanks to Kristen. I mean, I really
Yes.
appreciate I really appreciate your work on this, and I appreciate your updates and you make things. It's a complicated process that I'm happy that somebody else does it besides us. And you do such a good job. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. May I have a motion to accept item 21018 to accept a new grant program monitoring policy?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second if nobody else has.
No, Neil did. Neil seconded.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep. I'll turn this over to Alex Kimball.
Sure. So this is us making formal something that we've been doing informally for a while. A lot of the federal granting agencies have started to pay a great deal more attention to sub-grantees and sub-recipients. And what that means is organizations that receive grant funding from an entity such as ourselves and then perform a fair amount of the work of that grant with some independence to it. Organizations like Maine Pretrial, Catholic Charities, through these doors are pretty good examples of organizations that we work with at the county quite regularly on different types of grants, usually related to the job, where they have a fair amount of autonomy as they perform key aspects of those grants. What the federal government is really sort of to zero in on is that if you have an entity such as ourselves, not really keeping a close and formal eye on those things, we are ultimately the people on the hook for those funds. So we just need to make it formal how we are keeping an eye on them, sort of a good fences, good neighbors kind of thing. So the policy that we've got here, it's not reinventing the wheel. This is taken from other entities that have done something similar. And it just puts into place and codifies the steps that we're going to go through to keep track of these things. And this is a requirement that we've got from the Department of Justice to have this in place moving forward. So can I answer any questions on the policy itself?
Does anybody have any questions of Alex? I guess
It's
Alex,
not exactly a groundbreaking thing.
yeah.
Um,
So Alex, this is, as I understand it, is something that's required by the federal agencies now?
Yeah, they definitely want to see entities such as ourselves really put this into a formal process as opposed to informal. And it truly makes sense. If we have the advantage of the agencies that we're working with, we've got people like Travis, and in particular, we've got Faye Loopy, who's been doing this for so long and working with agencies that we have very, very long-standing relationships with. And so that's great. That all works for us, but there could be new people and there could be new agencies where we don't have that same familiarity. So let's get this in place if it's new people on any of those ends, essentially.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we have a roll call, Jim?
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Coward,
Yes.
Commissioner Watonis,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson.
Yes.
Show it 5-0.
Thank you all.
Travis, do we have any other comments?
We do not.
Thank you. May I have a motion to take care of item 21019 to approve the First Amendment to our lease at 25 Pearl Street?
So moved.
I'll second.
Jim Gailey.
Thank you. This item's coming forth at, as an amendment, a First Amendment to the lease of 25 Pearl Street. As the commissioners are aware, 25 Pearl Street is the current location of the county's Registry of Deeds and regional assessing offices. It's on the corner of Pearl Street and 4, and their lease is running out at the end of this year. And in the lease document, there was a provision of giving advance notice of whether we were going to extend the lease or not. And I have notified the landlord that we were going to extend, as it was my hopes by now we would have a building on its way that we have talked much about over the last 3 or 4 years, but just have not pulled the trigger on it yet. Unfortunately, that will be probably another year or 2, 3 away. So I have entered into a conversation with the landlord around the possibility of renewing the lease, but I did not want to renew it with the 10-year term as the current lease currently states. I thought 10 years was a little too far out there. And with us having a project on the horizon that I hope get some legs underneath it soon, we would be in a disadvantage extending that out for 10 years. So I entered into a conversation around breaking that 10-year up to 2 5s. The landlord was willing to do that. The first 5 is a fixed 5, and it is to begin January 1st, 2022 and extend 5 years. We do need to give notice if we are not going to be there after 5 years. I think it's 12 or 14 months notice that we'll be leaving the premises. Our rent will be going up Currently, we're paying in the high $15. I think it's like $15.89 a square foot. It will go up to $18 a square foot. They originally wanted $20, but we negotiated it down to 18. And there will be a 2.5% increase year over year of the lease. It was important for us, as we all know how government works. We all have the greatest plans, but maybe they don't play out in the 5-year time period. So it was important for me to preserve some interest in that building if we were not able to move deeds and assessing out of that in the first 5-year term. So the landlord was willing to give us a 5-year option after the 5 years. Again, that option is an enhanced notification process, and there would be a 2.5% increase year over year of that 5 years also. So in all, I think this is a good amendment to the lease. It preserves us a location for our offices and some stability for the 2 departments while we go through a process in hopes of maybe someday moving them out of rented space and putting them into county-owned space. I'm available to any questions that the commissioners may have. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Is question Tom?
It's just not a question. I mean, I defer to your negotiating skills with the landlord. This seems, from what I understand about this, it seems reasonable within the scope of things. But I just wanted to say I'm an occasional user of the services of the Registry of Deeds. I find them to be very easy to deal with, and they have reacted to COVID very well. I mean, it's essentially unless you want to mail stuff in, you go down to their office and throw it in a box and call them and tell them it's there, and they come and get it. And they've really been very. I think they've been very flexible and very reasonable about how they've managed to get through the current difficult time. So just kudos to them.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Coward,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Batonis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Show the vote 5-0.
Okay, well, I'm going to change the agenda just a little bit. I'm going to ask us to go into the executive session first before we talk about the motions. So I would ask that we have a motion to enter into an executive session in accordance with 1 MRSA 4056C.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Manager.
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Batonis,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Coward,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Show the vote 5-0.
To the public, I suspect that our presentation will take probably, I'm guessing, 30 to 40 minutes, after which time we will come back into session and may take a vote on a contract. Travis, would you please